podcasting came into things when, I had this blog going for a while, I was doing really well, and then all of a sudden I reached a plateau. I was, talking to the same exact people all the time, same exact people were commenting. I had the same exact traffic numbers for a few months, and I decided to try other things to get outside of my comfort zone, to try and reach new audiences. And I knew that podcasting was one potential way to do that. The whole reason why I got into internet business and why I was inspired to do internet business was from listening to internet business podcasts. So I knew I could reach people just like other podcasters had reached me earlier in my life. So I just decided to give it a try, and just kind of blew my mind how awesome it is and how much fun I'm having, but also at the same time how many people I actually have an effect on, how many people I could reach. It's just really, really an amazing kind of medium to reach people, and it's awesome. I love podcasting. I've really grown to be really fond of it.
So let's just wind back a little bit. When you did first make that decision to say, I'm going to start my very own podcast, what was the next logical step for you at that point?
Well, funny thing is, I actually wanted to do a podcast for the longest time because I knew it's what kind of got me into this business. And that was probably, I want to say mid-2009 was when I wanted to first start the podcast. Probably early 2009, actually. It was like one of my goals. And I had said that. I said it on my blog, and I told people. I got really excited about it, and it just never happened. And the primary reason was just because I didn't even know what to do. I didn't know where to start. I had no resources, really, that I knew about, and it just kind of sat there as an idea that I wanted to explore for a while, but it just never happened. Really, what confused me the most was, how do I get whatever I record on my microphone into iTunes? That was a whole crazy thing for me. I didn't understand it, and I just didn't have the energy to figure all that out. It just seemed like a foreign language to me almost. But now that I'm doing it, it's not that hard. It's just I needed someone to kind of explain it to me.
What's, Pat, the process that you have learned? If you can talk us through just quickly, what process do you go through to get your podcast up and running?
Sure. So after I record something, basically I'm at a point now where all I have to do is put it into a blog post, copy a template from an older blog post, just change the episode number on my file name, and then bam, it's all automated now. So after the initial kind of setup, right now it's totally cake. It's totally easy. But that initial setup, the way I do it, and I know there's a number of different ways to do it. Some people use plugins on their WordPress blogs to make it happen. I don't use a plugin. I basically have a category on my blog that is specific for the podcast. The name of the category is podcast. And I have that connected into FeedBurner. So FeedBurner reads that feed coming from that particular category on my blog. I put that FeedBurner feed address, feeds.feedburner.com/whatever, into iTunes. And then the way to get an episode on is I create a blog post in that category. I make sure to put a link to an MP3 file, which I upload onto a server somewhere. You can have it anywhere you want, really. I use Libsyn, Libsyn, to store my files. And I grab that link over from Libsyn, put that into my blog post, and then when I publish it, it all kind of just automatically gets put into iTunes and gets syndicated elsewhere. And people start listening, and it's I'm really glad that I kind of had a lot of help to figure all this out, because now when I put out an episode, I can get 5,000-6,000 downloads in one day.
Wow!
So it's pretty crazy how many people I'm kind of reaching and who are actually listening to my voice. That was another thing that kind of held me back from getting started. Was I just had I hated listening to my own voice. And I was bad behind the microphone. I was really scared and timid. And I had done a couple test episodes back in the day, and I would listen to myself, and I would hear myself say and like all the time, and have awkward pauses. And really what helped me get to the point now where I feel comfortable behind the microphone is actually going onto YouTube first and practicing, I guess you could say, on doing YouTube videos. So that actually is what really helped. That was what I did first before I went into podcasting. It was kind of a nice progression into podcasting.
So it was actually easier for you to be on camera. Is that what you're saying?
Well, actually,
as opposed to...
it was easy for me to speak with video, but I actually wasn't on the camera. I was actually doing screencasts of things on the screen, internet strategies and design and stuff. So I would be recording what you see on my screen, but you wouldn't see my face. But it was a great way for me to practice kind of speaking and learning how to enunciate and just be comfortable.
Yeah, it is so much about comfort, isn't it? Because the second that you sort of tense up behind a microphone, then all of a sudden your voice does actually start to change. But it's muscles in your throat that are tensing up, and all of a sudden you become hypersensitive to the things that you're saying, and it can become quite a restrictive experience. So for you, what were some of the key things? Because I know for me, Pat, when I started out as a radio DJ, one of the issues that I had with my voice was pace. So I used to talk very, very quickly because I was pretty nervous and I just wanted to get the whole thing over and done with. I think that was probably going on for me on a subconscious level. But what was it for you that you thought, I really have to work on this?
It was really the awkward pauses. That's kind of what really held me back. And that was just because, I was probably speaking a lot faster than I thought. So I kind of had to catch up with myself. And really what helped was just practicing, doing those YouTube videos. If you go back to some of my older YouTube videos, they're terrible. But forcing myself to not edit was another big thing for me, just to record one or two takes and just put it out there, not even worry about editing. That way would force me to later down the road, it would kind of train. I was basically training myself to be able to speak and be comfortable and not worry about those pauses and learn how to fill in those pauses if I needed to, things like that.
I think you made a really good point there, Pat, that editing can actually be a double-edged sword, can't it?
Absolutely.
Because you can use it and it can polish up your podcast and it can sound great. But the other side of it is you can fall into this black hole, almost this vortex where you just can't escape it and you keep editing and editing and editing until the audio sounds nothing like the original.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And some people will rely on the editing and just be like, okay, well, that wasn't that good, but I'll make it better through editing. And I think that kind of degrades the craft of, being able to speak behind a microphone as one should.
So, two questions here. The first question is, what is the editing system that you're using? I presume you're using some sort of software.
I am. I'm using GarageBand. I'm on a Mac, and I feel very comfortable using the software that Mac provides, and I'm using GarageBand in order to do that.
Fantastic. And the second question is, Pat, how has developing this skill of being able to talk in your podcast helped you with things like public speaking or speaking from stage?
It's really just boosted my confidence like tenfold. Absolutely. I mean, even when I'm speaking with people who I've never met before, one-on-one, doing consultations and coaching, all that has been heightened, and I provide more value to people because I am able to speak more comfortably in front of people. And I know I'm not perfect now. You'll hear me say and like, but I just feel more confident, and that feeling of confidence kind of comes out from me onto whoever I'm speaking to, and they kind of feel that if they're paying for consultation, that they feel like they're really getting someone who knows what they're talking about. If I'm speaking in front of large groups of people, I can grab people's attention for longer and really engage the crowd. It's been really, really good. Starting the podcast was probably one of the best business decisions that I've ever made.
Is that right? That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. I mean, when you did decide to start the podcast, you already had a very successful blog and you launched an ebook which had made you, no doubt, a ton of money. How has integrating a podcast into your blog changed things? How has it helped your business?
It's tough to say how it's helped on kind of when looking at the numbers as far as money is concerned, because it's one of those things that you can't get immediate ROI from it. You can't understand with I put in X number of hours and I get this much money back. It doesn't work like that. It's basically heightened my authority in this kind of niche. I'm seen as more of an expert now because not everyone in this niche is doing a podcast. It's just, it's another way for people also to connect with me. A lot of people don't like to read the blog, or they don't like to watch videos, and they'd much rather listen on a podcast when they're at the gym, when they're in their car, whatever. It's another way for me to connect with people who probably wouldn't have connected me in any other type of medium that I was using at the time. So it's just really, it kind of rounds out my entire brand. It's building, it's expanding the brand.